I stood there, staring out at the lake, caught between what once was and what I never saw coming. My name is Samantha. I'm 40 now, and until recently, I thought I had most of my life figured out. I've been married to Daniel for 15 years, living in the heart of a busy city that never takes a break. I'm a graphic designer, someone who finds peace in the structure of clean lines, color palettes, and routine. Daniel's the opposite. He's a corporate consultant, always moving, always in control, always needing to fix things, even when they aren't broken. That control used to make me feel safe. Lately, it's just made me feel small. Our marriage hasn't been a fairy tale. We've had the usual fights, missed signals, and those long silences that say more than words ever could. Life in the city drained us, always in motion, always racing deadlines, always performing. I carried that tension in my shoulders, in the tight way I smiled, in the way Daniel grew quieter and harder to reach. That's when he suggested we get away. Just the two of us. Somewhere quiet, disconnected from everything. He found a cabin near Lake Wisteria, tucked away and barely on the map. No phones, no work, just us. I imagined it instantly, long walks under trees so thick they swallowed the noise of the world, nights curled under a blanket by the fire, trying to find each other again. I packed light, a few sweaters, my favorite book. Daniel, always the planner, had everything mapped and checked twice. The drive took 6 hours, long and winding. As the city disappeared behind us, the road grew darker and more narrow. We didn't talk much. I tried, but he barely responded. His hands stayed locked on the wheel, his focus somewhere far away. When we arrived, it was late. The cabin was swallowed in shadows. I remember falling into bed without really seeing anything. By morning, the world felt different. Quiet, calm, the kind of quiet you forget exists when you live in chaos. I woke up to the sound of birds and trees brushing against the window. The air smelled like earth and pine. It felt clean, untouched. For the first time in a long time, I breathed. The place was small but cozy. The floor creaked beneath my feet, the fireplace sat cold and unused, and sunlight slipped through the trees like a warm invitation. I pulled on a sweater, the cool morning air biting gently at my skin, and walked to the kitchen. That's when I saw them, 2 men standing outside, next to a truck. Strangers. Daniel had called someone. For help. For repairs. He hadn't mentioned it. The men moved with confidence, walking toward the cabin like they'd been here before. I looked at Daniel, expecting some explanation. He didn't offer one. He just stood by the door, calm and unreadable, like he was waiting for something to happen. The men entered with tools in hand and purpose in their step. I didn't know what was going on, but Daniel didn't stop them. He didn't flinch. He didn't speak. He just watched. And I let it happen. In the small kitchen, I found an old percolator sitting on the counter, the kind that looked like it had lived there as long as the cabin itself. I set it up to brew, and soon the bubbling sound of coffee filled the quiet space. The smell of bitterness mixed with the crisp morning air sneaking in through the window. As I waited, I caught a glimpse of Daniel outside, standing near the lake. His hands were buried in his pockets, shoulders hunched slightly as he stared out at the water. There was something heavy in his stance, a kind of stillness that made my chest tighten. Whatever he was thinking about, it was far away from me. Instead of coffee, I poured a mug of tea. The steam curled upward gently as I walked out onto the terrace. The wooden boards creaked under my steps, and the cold air kissed my cheeks. The lake was a mirror, calm and untouched. Trees lined the edges, their reflections perfect on the surface. Every so often, a fish would ripple the water, or a leaf would drift down, breaking the illusion for just a moment. A single loon called out in the distance, its sound haunting and beautiful all at once. It filled the space between us with something too big to name. I cleared my throat gently, careful not to startle him, and held out my mug like a small gesture of peace. "Couldn't sleep either?" I asked, my voice almost too soft for the open space around us. He turned slightly, his eyes meeting mine for just a second before drifting back to the lake. It was as if he was looking for something in the water, something only he could see. He didn't answer, and his silence wrapped around us, thick like the morning fog. I took a sip of my tea and sank into a chair nearby, watching him. The way he stood, so quiet, so unreachable, sent a strange chill through me. Not from the weather, but from something else. A feeling I couldn't quite put into words. Maybe it was just this place, this quiet that peeled back all the layers we were used to hiding behind. Out here, we were raw, unfiltered, and it scared me a little. While I sat there, Caught in that feeling, something moved near the edge of the trees. Two figures stepped out from the forest, slowly coming into view. They looked like they belonged to the woods, like they'd been shaped by it. Both were tall, with strong builds and dark green uniforms that made me think of park rangers, or maybe something more private. Their faces were lined and serious, carrying the kind of wear that comes from years spent outside, dealing with things most people never think about. There was a quiet confidence about them, like they knew exactly what they were here for. I guessed they were probably in their late 30s or early 40s, men who looked like they'd been through a lot. The kind of faces that didn't flinch easily. One of them held a clipboard and tapped his fingers against it in a slow, steady rhythm. The other had a radio clipped to his belt, the antenna poking upward like it meant business. I tried to see them more clearly, but the distance softened their features. All I could make out were rough outlines, sharp eyes and a way of walking that said they had a job to do and knew exactly how to do it. I looked over at Daniel, expecting him to be just as confused as I was, but to my surprise, he was already walking toward them. He didn't seem caught off guard at all. In fact, he looked calm, comfortable, even. I watched him extend his hand, shaking theirs one by one like he'd been waiting for this moment. My grip on the mug tightened as I watched. The warmth of the tea felt far away now, like it belonged to someone else. He hadn't said a word about anyone coming. Not when we were packing, not during the long drive, not even this morning when we woke to this peaceful, quiet place. I sat frozen in my chair, the steam from my tea curling up in slow, ghost-like wisps, my mind trying to catch up with what my eyes were seeing. Then Daniel turned to me. The morning sun cast half his face in shadow, and the look he gave me, along with that faint, unreadable smile, sent a quiet unease through me. "They'll only be here for an hour, if you don't mind," he said, his voice smooth and steady. But there was something underneath it, something that pressed down on my chest like a weight I couldn't shake. I nodded, too slowly, trying to make sense of it. I told myself maybe it was just a routine check, something simple that slipped his mind in the rush of planning. But deep down, I knew better. This didn't feel like something innocent. Something about it felt off. One of the men started walking toward me while the other stayed close to Daniel, the two of them speaking in hushed tones I couldn't quite hear. As the man approached, I noticed how solid and deliberate his steps were, each one crunching the gravel like he had all the time in the world and nothing to fear. When he got close enough, I saw a name tag on his chest. Mark. He stopped just a step too close, standing over me in a way that made the space between us feel tight and uncomfortable. The air felt heavier suddenly, almost like it thickened around his presence. Before I could say a word, he placed his hand on my shoulder, not rough, but steady, as if he was making something clear without speaking. I stiffened, my body going rigid, unsure how to respond. Then he leaned in, his breath brushing my ear as he spoke softly, his words slicing through me with an eerie calmness. "He wants to watch," he said. "We'll just do what he asked." The way he said it, so casual and confident, sent a chill crawling up my spine. My brain scrambled to process what he meant. Watch what? Do what? I looked quickly toward Daniel, hoping he would break the tension or explain what was happening. But instead, he was already walking away, headed back toward the veranda like this was all part of some plan. He didn't look back. He didn't say a word. Just that same quiet expression I couldn't read. Even with his back turned, I felt him watching, felt the strange pressure of his silence. My heart was beating so hard it echoed in my ears. I didn't even remember walking back inside, but suddenly I was standing there, in the middle of the cabin, surrounded by walls that now felt far too close. The air was thick and unmoving, pressing against my skin. The wooden walls, once warm and rustic, now seemed harsh and suffocating. Patterns of light broke against them like jagged cracks, and the space that had felt cozy just hours ago now seemed to close in on me from all sides. My hands were shaking, my thoughts were scattered, flying in every direction. I kept thinking, how did Daniel plan this? Why didn't he warn me? Why wasn't he stepping in? And maybe the most haunting question of all, why hadn't I run? Why was I still standing there, paralyzed, when every nerve in my body was screaming to get out? The floor beneath me creaked every time I shifted my weight, the sound sharp and too loud in the silence. Outside, I could hear the wind moving through the trees, a soft, eerie whisper that slipped through the cracks in the cabin walls. It carried with it the wild, earthy scent of pine and damp leaves. The door was still partly open, letting streaks of sunlight spill into the room, catching tiny dust particles that floated aimlessly in the air, beautiful, aimless, and slow, like everything around me was frozen in time, waiting for something I didn't understand. I couldn't stop staring at the narrow gap in the door, the only visible slice of freedom, but my legs refused to move. Mark stood nearby, his presence like a low thunder rumbling beneath the surface. Travis, whose name tag I now noticed, hovered just behind him, the two of them too close, their shadows stretching across the cabin floor like silent threats. Then Mark spoke, his voice low, unnervingly calm, polished in a way that made it clear this wasn't the first time he'd said these words. "We've done this before," he said, his eyes locked on mine without a single blink. "It's just an arrangement. Nothing happens unless you want it to." His tone was meant to be reassuring, I could tell, but the words landed flat, hollow, lifeless. Something about the way his jaw clenched, the tiny flick of his gaze toward the window, it betrayed him. I followed his glance instinctively. Daniel sat outside on the veranda, in the same worn chair I had occupied earlier. His back was to us, but his posture spoke volumes, straight, rigid, like someone bracing for impact. Just watching him sent a storm of emotions rolling through me. Anger, confusion, a piercing sense of betrayal. But beneath it all, buried deep where I didn't want to look, there was something else. A strange, unspoken curiosity, ugly and real, that shamed me even as it pulsed quietly under my skin. Memories surged forward without warning. Years of quiet compromise, swallowed longings, practiced smiles masking silent fractures. Had Daniel planned this to test me somehow? To push me into revealing something he always suspected but never voiced? Or was this about him, his own dark corners projected onto me, waiting to see if I'd reflect them back? I didn't know, and not knowing felt like unraveling from the inside out. My hand trembled as I reached for my tea, still sitting untouched on the rough wooden table beside me. The mug clinked against the surface with a loud, jarring sound in the suffocating silence. I held it tightly, trying to draw strength from the fading warmth in the handle, like it could tether me to something real. Something normal. Travis moved in then. His approach was slower than Mark's, less forceful, but no less deliberate. There was a different weight to him, subtle, creeping, inescapable. Like a shadow that refused to detach from your heels. The pressure in the room shifted again, thickening, bending around my spine. It was as if the very air knew what was coming. And for the first time, I realized I wasn't sure if I was resisting anymore, or simply waiting. I inhaled deeply, trying to calm the tremor running through me, but the air is thick, laced with the sharp bite of pine and the faint, raw scent of sweat. It grounds me and unmoors me at the same time, like I'm floating and sinking all at once. My eyes flick to the window again, to Daniel, still sitting, still unmoving. I stare at the rigid line of his back and wonder what's going through his mind. Is he silently pleading with me to walk away, to stop this before it starts? Or is he waiting, watching, hoping I'll cross a threshold we've never dared approach before? I don't know. I can't read him. And worse, I can't even read myself. There's a tension within me, a split down the middle, fear on one side, and on the other, a strange pull I can't define. It's like it's always been there, just beneath the surface of my life, waiting for a moment like this to rise. I stand frozen in the middle of the cabin, every breath held hostage by the stillness pressing in around me. Even the air seems suspended, like it's bracing for what comes next. My heart pounds against my chest like it's trying to warn me, but it's too late. This moment has already arrived, unfolding whether I'm ready or not. Years of life with Daniel, routine, comfort, small sacrifices, feel like a distant echo now. I shift slightly and the wooden floor groans beneath me, the sound echoing through the close space as I slowly lower myself. My knees press against the rough planks, their texture biting into my skin, and I don't fully know why I'm doing it, only that something deep inside is surrendering to the current I've tried so hard to ignore. The pine-scented air wraps around me again, thick and wild, seeping through every crack and crevice, blending with the uneven rhythm of my breath. It's dizzying. It feels like I'm both waking and slipping into a dream. Sunlight slants through the window, painting golden stripes across the floor in my arms, bathing the room in a soft, almost sacred glow. And yet, the light feels out of place, too warm, too pure, for what this moment really is. Dust drifts through the golden sunlight, tiny specks turning weightless and bright as they float through the air like quiet witnesses. Outside, the distant rhythm of Lake Wisteria brushes against the shore, a soft, lapping murmur that clashes with the chaos churning inside me. Each creak of the floor beneath me seems louder now, echoing with a strange finality that reminds me exactly where I am and what I'm letting happen. The cabin feels alive somehow, its old wood groaning, its silence thick, like it's watching too, whispering truths I don't want to hear. Through the door, I catch the outline of Daniel still seated on the veranda. His silhouette is fixed in place, dark against the brightness beyond. He hasn't moved. He doesn't need to. I feel the weight of his presence like a hand on my back, a pressure that's heavier than anything inside this room. I can't see his expression, but I know what's there, or worse, what isn't. No anger, no jealousy, just a kind of cool detachment that slices deeper than anything loud or violent ever could. That stillness, it chills me even in the sun's warmth, making me feel small and hollow and disturbingly bare. And in that terrible stillness, a question rises: what does he see when he looks at me now? Is there even a me left to recognize? My emotions twist in a blur: shame, doubt, a sick tangle of guilt and disorientation. And beneath it all, hiding like a splinter I can't remove, is a dark thrill I don't want to name. It frightens me more than anything else, how much of me is unraveling. The act of standing here, kneeling here, feels less like a choice and more like a revelation. My defenses are gone. My soul feels flayed open, raw and exposed on this wooden floor. I can't bring myself to look at Daniel again. Instead, I stare down, fixated on the rough grain beneath my palms. The texture bites into my skin, grounding me just enough to hold on. It's the only real thing I can cling to in a moment that's slipping out of my control. Behind me, I hear the quiet, deliberate movements of Mark and Travis. They move without emotion, without passion, methodical, like this is just another assignment to complete. The way they carry themselves makes it all feel so clinical, stripped of meaning or intimacy, like a contract drawn up somewhere far from love. Their uniforms rustle faintly as they shift, blending with the wooden creaks and the soft murmur of the lake outside. It all comes together into a strange, haunting melody that fills the room and drowns out my thoughts. I keep my eyes fixed on the floor, tracing every scratch and knot in the old wood, trying to disappear into the details. My heart pounds, my mind screams, but all I can do is focus on what's in front of me. The presence of Mark and Travis still lingers in the air like a pressure I can't shake. Whether I chose this or it was chosen for me, I honestly don't know anymore. Time bends strangely around me. Every second feels stretched too long, yet slipping away too fast to hold. I breathe in shallow bursts, the air thick with pine and something darker, something animal, unspoken, impossible to name. Then I hear it, the creak of the cabin door. It breaks through the silence like a knife. My heart skips, then slams against my ribs as the sound of footsteps fills the room. Slow, measured, each one lands like a warning. It's Daniel. I don't need to look up to know. I stay curled up in the corner, hugging my knees, gripping my sweater with trembling fingers, as if I could make myself small enough to vanish. I can't look at him. I'm too afraid of what I'll see on his face, too afraid of what I'll see in myself. The air grows dense, filled with something unspeakable: regret, confusion, sorrow, each emotion pressing in with no place to go. The scent of pine is still there, but it's tainted now, mingled with something real and raw. Something that can't be undone. I feel him kneel beside me, the wood shifting softly under his weight. His presence pulls at something deep in me, even though I keep my eyes down, unwilling to meet whatever's in his. Then his hand moves toward me, and instinctively, I flinch. I brace for judgment, for anger, but instead, his fingers are gentle, brushing softly through my hair. The gesture is quiet, loaded, heavy with emotion I can't read. Not yet. My breath catches in my throat, shaky and unsure, because in that simple touch, I feel just how breakable I've become. Then he speaks. His voice is low, barely above a whisper, but it echoes through the silence like thunder. Now I've seen the real you, he says, the words soft, yet heavy with something I can't quite define. Is it sorrow? Relief? Some twisted mix of both? The tone isn't angry, not biting or cold like I expected, and that unsettles me more than if he had yelled. I had braced myself for fury, for disgust, something to match the storm unraveling inside me, but it never comes. I force myself to look up, to meet his eyes, expecting to see hatred or distance. But what I find instead is a strange, unsettling calm. He doesn't look like a man betrayed. He looks like someone who's finally confirmed something he's always suspected. There's no shock in his expression, just acceptance, quiet and almost knowing. It hits harder than any accusation could. His eyes hold mine, steady and unflinching, and in that gaze, I feel utterly exposed. Not just for what I've done, but for who I am beneath everything I've tried to be. It's like he's seeing a version of me I didn't even know existed, one I've tried to bury for years. I want to look away, to retreat into myself, but I can't. I'm frozen under the weight of his understanding, unable to hide. Inside, I'm breaking. Guilt gnaws at me, relentless and sharp, whispering that I've destroyed something that once mattered. That I've crossed a line I can never uncross. And yet, beneath all the shame, buried deep beneath the wreckage of right and wrong, there's something else. A truth I haven't dared speak aloud. I liked it. The rush of it, the danger, the thrill of crossing a line I'd always sworn I wouldn't, it still lingers in my blood. It tore through every rule I thought I lived by, unraveling parts of me I didn't know were there. And the worst part, I don't fully regret it. I know I should, but I don't. That truth settles in my chest like a stone, quiet, heavy, and impossible to ignore. It's a confession I don't dare speak aloud, not even to myself. This isn't just a betrayal of Daniel, it's a betrayal of the woman I believed I was. How do I come back from that? How do I live with this new version of myself that feels foreign, yet terrifyingly real? The silence between us stretches on, thick and suffocating. Outside, the lake whispers against the shore, calm and steady, as if mocking the chaos that now lives inside this cabin. The world beyond these walls keeps turning, untouched by the choices I've made. I hear the leaves shifting in the breeze, a bird calling out somewhere in the distance, gentle sounds that once brought peace but now feel unreachable. It's like I've slipped out of the natural rhythm of things, no longer part of the quiet beauty I used to find comfort in. I sit here, still, the air thick around me, the weight of everything pressing in from all sides. And I've never felt more lost. Thank you for taking the time to read this deeply emotional and thought-provoking story. It's never easy to explore the raw, complicated corners of love, betrayal, and self-discovery, but your presence here means everything. Each story shared on this channel is crafted to stir something real, something human. If this one moved you, challenged your thinking, or made you feel seen in any way, know that more stories like this await you. We're grateful for every reader who joins us on these intimate journeys, and we invite you to stay with us. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications so you never miss a moment. Your support encourages us to keep bringing real, heartfelt narratives that linger long after the last word. Disclaimer: this story is a work of fiction and is intended for entertainment purposes only. Any resemblance to actual events, real persons living or dead, or real-life situations is purely coincidental. The characters, settings, and plot are products of the author's imagination and are not meant to depict or encourage any specific behavior, lifestyle, or relationship dynamic. Viewer discretion is advised, as the content explores mature and emotionally complex themes. Thank you again, and remember, your next story is just one click away.